into the next life
with Drew
with
and me.
Drew and me. Okay, welcome
All
to
right,
the
I was a little
Drew.
bit ahead of you
Oh
on
no
that.
no 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 no! It's totally cool. Uh, welcome. um, hmm, um, welcome to the Drew and Me podcast. Where we talk about movies, um, music, and hmm, um whatever else we want to talk about. And sometimes we do sketches. And today I am joined by one of my oldest friends, one of my childhood compadres, and Drew Connolly.
Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely, dude. Is there anything? Are there any projects you're working on that you'd like to promote at this time?
Not really. Just
Okay.
getting ready for the start of school year, which is exciting in of itself. But other than that, nothing too out of the ordinary.
Totally cool, dude. Um, that's awesome, man. Yeah. So just a general school question. For your classroom, do you put up, do you put up, do you put up, do you put up posters in your classroom?
Yeah. I try to, decorate as much as possible. There are definitely teachers who are better at it than I am. I've never been the most decorative type. But I do have a lot of posters, a lot of different things that relate to my subject, world history. So just things I've acquired over the years. Some I've gotten from other teachers. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of posters up.
Um, mm, yeah, man. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm kind of an aspiring teacher as well. Well, you are a history teacher. um,
Yeah.
um, I'm kind of a teacher in training. I'm not sure if I would put up any posters. Probably educational. Probably would have educational themes. And good messages,
Mhm.
and probably a lot of puzzles, and maybe a 3D poster, which
Yeah.
segues wonderfully into what we're going to talk about today. We're doing a Seinfeld top 10 list because both Andrew and myself are huge Seinfeld fans, and we talked about it a lot in our youth.
Oh yeah,
um,
for
uh,
sure.
so we're gonna get into um, top 10 Seinfeld episodes of all time. But before that, we also really like the show The Office. So we're gonna quickly do top 3 Office episodes. So I leave it to you, Andrew. What is your third favorite episode of The Office of all time?
All right. So third favorite, I will say for the Seinfeld, just to go forward, is so difficult for that. They're not necessarily in any ranking, just a top 10, but for The Office, I do have it. Um, Third would be Fire Drill, where
Mm,
Dwight causes the fire and everyone. I think Stanley might have a heart attack in that episode too.
oh wow.
The second one is Money, or the I like to call it the Beet Farm episode.
Mm,
That's where Jim and Pam, they go to Dwight's beet farm, and his great crazy brother is like running by outside during the night.
mm,
Um, and then the last one is Product Recall.
okay.
Um, yeah, that was a really good one too.
Mm. Um, mm, um, can you go more into depth about product recall?
Yeah, so that's the one where they they sent out the paper to the company with like um the watermark that like appeared to show like Mickey Mouse like having sex with someone like another mouse or something. So there was like obviously a huge deal about that. I think Michael blamed Creed for it happening. Creed said it wasn't his fault. Someone like demanded Michael resign. Obviously, he's not going to resign. So basically, that whole episode was about the fallout from that.
Hmm.
Oh, another thing about that episode that I really like, it
Yes,
was the
sir.
one where at the beginning Jim dresses up as Dwight,
Ooh,
and
yeah.
basically acts as him, does all his mannerisms. Obviously Dwight gets mad and then he goes running off to running off to Michael to complain. And then at the very end of the episode, Dwight dresses up as Jim, but does not get the reaction he was hoping for.
Oh boy. Um. Hmm. um. Let's see. Uh. Yeah, I think that's one of the best opens of the show that they've ever done. That's one of Jim's more elaborate pranks, which
Oh yeah,
I really like. And when Dwight says, "I, I, identity theft is like a real thing,"
yeah,
I think that's really funny. And then when Jim does like the Dwight impression when he goes like, "Michael,"
mm,
and Dwight does it. It's interesting because like Dwight's Michael was like less intense than like the Jim one. Like the Jim one's a
oh
lot
yeah,
more pronounced, it's a lot more focused, and the Dwight
yeah,
one's different, but it's like perfect timing. I think Rainn Wilson's an excellent actor. Gets really good timing. Of course, John Krasinski's awesome too. But
yeah.
uh it's a really strong opening to the show. And even if you haven't seen the show, you kind of can understand the relationship between each other. And I think it's also great that like the show's great at reaction shots. Like it's a very reactionary humor show. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot of other characters' reactions to other characters is where a lot of the humor comes from. And when they show Jenna, when they show the Pam character played by Jenna Fisher, when they show her reaction to Jim, um, hmm, um, doing the impression, that's interesting because it looks really genuine and it's a really good kind of reaction from Jenna, which means she genuinely felt it was funny. So,
Oh yeah.
like, which that's good. Like, I love seeing authenticity on the screen. Like, I love when actors are honest and when
Sure.
you see, like, you know, the honest actors. So, that's a really good open. And you said that's the opening to Product Recall.
Yeah, yeah. Product recall. Yep.
That's awesome. What other aspects about Product Recall do you really like?
Uh, just the whole like, I think that episode really kind of encompasses Michael's like inability to grasp certain business, ethics. Where like the like where I mentioned someone demands he resign, and then he's like, "Oh, I'll just put a watermark with FU in the corner." Like that's just not how a business manager should respond. I think it's always interesting within the show. Obviously Michael has so many moments of being a terrible boss, but then there are other moments where like he actually shows his business savvy in business sense. So I just think like him as a character, that dichotomy between being a bad boss, someone who would definitely not survive the 2021 moment, versus the other side of him where actually he does grasp on the finer uh, elements of business and
Yeah.
business administration to be exact.
It's true. He does do some things well. Part of it is like he has a very particular sense of humor, and he kind of wants everyone to find him funny, and he wants to be accepted by everyone,
Yeah.
but also not yes and no accepted, but like he wants to be loved, but he also wants to be respected.
Yeah.
So there's kind of that interesting dichotomy about the Michael character, but he'll
Hmm.
just do like ridiculous stuff and he'll get away with it, which
Oh yeah.
I can understand. Um, like The Office is a show because of Michael. Like he's a character some people don't necessarily like right away.
Hmm.
Like I know people in my family, like I know that my mom, like she like me and my dad love the show. So we'd be watching an episode. My mom would come in and she'd be like, "Oh, Steve Carell is so obnoxious," and but then she got into it and she didn't really get it. She hadn't really worked in that kind of office environment yet. So after working in an office, she kind of got to understand more of the humor and the Michael character. He does grow on you. Like he
Yeah.
grows on you a lot, and part of it is like just credit to the writers and directors for setting up a really good show. But you have to give him a chance. You have to give the show a chance. But yeah, that is kind of one of his more outrageous moments. um, hmm, yeah. Oh boy. Um, yeah. Uh, yeah. Um,
Yeah, just to kind of like, take a moment to appreciate Steve Carell, just like the great actor that he is, between that and 40-year-old virgin is like an amazing movie.
oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, just Steve Carell does such a great job with that character of Michael. I mean, they all do. Like I think like the acting in that show is really good in general, but Steve Carell, he just does a fantastic job as Michael.
Uh, he carries it, and he's very endearing at the same time. Like
Mhm.
he's like he makes mistakes, but he does succeed, and he is really likable. Like you just gotta kind of give him a chance.
Yeah.
So he's kind of a character, and a lot of that is due to how Steve Carell makes him. Like in season one, the character wasn't that likable, but they made him more likable after that, and then the show did get more popular.
Mhm.
Which yeah, because you have to be able to root for him, and also it got popular because people got into the Jim and Pam relationship. Like that's one of the strongest aspects of the show is the Jim and Pam relationship. So
Sure.
um that actually let's see. So if you want to talk about fire drill briefly, what are the aspects of fire drill that you really like?
Just like the whole chaotic nature of how it begins. It's a really good Dwight episode where Dwight often has like these ideas where at the base of it, it's a good idea. Like everyone should know how to leave an office in an
Yeah.
orderly manner if there's a fire.
Yeah.
That's safety 101. That's why
Yeah.
schools do fire drills. But the way he goes about it is also so Dwight in that his best intentions are overshadowed by just like the chaotic nature in which he starts it by actually like starting a fire and causing you
Yeah.
know they, the doors are locked, so
Yeah.
everyone's panicking, they're trying to break through the
Right.
windows, and it's just like the whole chaotic nature of that scene in general is really what pulls me into that episode.
Yeah. hmm. Yeah, kind of one of Dwight's crazy plans, which sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, and this type
Yeah.
of thing. But it's interesting because he goes all the way with it, which like as long as you go in that way with that mentality, like the episode where he takes Ryan out to like initiate him into sales. He goes
Mhm.
all the way, and like he has Ryan like run to like catch up with him. He has him drink beer. You know, he does like the whole kind of initiation thing. So he does go all the way. So
Right.
I give Dwight a lot of credit for that. um, um, and there's like a wilderness survival episode where he makes Michael think that he's surviving the wilderness when he really isn't, but he's planting that seed in to Michael's head, and he's kind of simulating that type of environment, which um I don't think Michael gets hurt at all. So like I'd say that was one of Dwight's better ideas, to be honest with you, because he doesn't actually put him in danger. He doesn't put
Yeah.
anyone else in danger. And he tries to get Michael to do something. So yeah, I'd say that's one of Dwight's stronger moments. um,
Yeah.
uh, maybe his method should be slightly different, but no, that's when his heart's in the right place. Um, and when he's really thinking too, and when he's just not so caught up in his idea that he'll go like to the end of the earth to make sure it's
Yeah.
accomplished. Like he said, he almost burned down the office, so that was a terrible idea. Like he
Mhm.
shouldn't do that. um, um, yeah. Uh, um, yeah. So what is your favorite episode of The Office?
Whew, man. Hmm. That's a tough one because I did say I was going to go from 3 to 1, and I have it as Fire Drill 3, Money 2, and Product Recall number 1. But uh, I don't know. The more I think about Fire Drill now that I talked about, it, the more I think it actually might be Fire Drill.
Mm,
That's But then I don't know because Money also has that like kind of nice moment between Jim and Dwight where like Jim hears him crying and like tries to comfort him, which is another great thing about that show. They do have some like moments that are actually like kind of touching, um, which I think is one of them. So that being said, I think I'll probably reverse my rankings and I'd probably go with Fire Drill being my favorite.
mm. Um, mm, there's fact. No. The more I think about it, the stronger that episode is, and it's kind of a bigger episode too. And that's something I also like. And I guess Michael is kind of a hero in the episode too because he makes Stanley laugh at the end.
Yeah.
So it's a good moment for Michael. And also a good Stanley episode. Like there aren't a ton of Stanley episodes, so um, that's a really good Stanley episode.
Yeah.
Uh, Leslie Baker, I think is the actor's name.
Okay.
Um, he's very good in that episode. So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of good things about that episode. Okay. Um, uh, my top three. Mm, let's see. Favorite episode is Secret Santa, which is the first Christmas episode where they swap all the gifts and they play Secret Santa, and then Michael decides to Yankee swap because he doesn't like the oven mitt that Phyllis gave him, so he's upset with the gift. So he basically changes the game so he gets to win. But um, there's some good swaps and people get to experience the other gifts, so there is some good that comes of it. And then they have a party at the end, and they'll drink and uh Mindy Kaling gives one of the funniest reactions. Um, uh, um, and I think the history of the show where she unwraps the present that Toby got for Angela, which is uh, the babies playing the saxophone and dressed up like jazz singers, and she's like, "Yikes!"
Yeah.
It's such a good read and such a good reaction. I think Mindy Kaling was only like 23 or 24, but she has real comic chops and she's great timing.
Yeah.
So that's a really good moment. And also, like, Paul Lieberstein and Mindy Kaling have a really good kind of relationship. I've read two of Mindy's books, and she speaks very highly of Paul Lieberstein. So,
Toby.
yep, Toby,
Okay.
who's also one of the writers and producers, and wanted to do Shroot Farms, which would have been a spin-off of The Office. They might have shot a pilot, which would have been a show all about the farm and Dwight, which they might want to bring that back, especially with how popular The Office still is, and
Oh, for sure.
it's on Peacock. They might want to try to do that. Maybe add a few more elements, but that could be a really strong show. So love Secret Santa, really funny. It's also interesting just to see everyone's reactions to their gifts when Ryan opens the nameplate that's for Kelly, which is a gift by Stanley, which is a good present by Stanley. Like, nameplate has flowers on it. Kelly would like it. So that was a good gift. And Ryan's like, okay, this is for Kelly, but okay. And Kelly and Ryan got together, so there it is.
Yeah.
Uh, I wonder if they knew then, and I wonder if that was like a commentary on or foreshadowing of things to come in kind of a weird way, because like writers like to do that. So, but I think they were also thinking, let's keep these two together. So, no, there's tons of good stuff in the episode. I've seen it multiple times. It's very rewatchable. Has such good watchability. It's excellently written, excellently directed. Um, the characters' reactions are great. It is my favorite episode from season 2, and it is my favorite episode in the show. Um, Second favorite episode would be Dwight K. Schrute, acting manager, which I think is season 7 or 8. And I actually don't really like the part where he fires the gun, but it's just kind of the first half is so funny, showing just like him taking over the office and him getting so excited when he gets the call. He's
Mhm.
like, then he talks to his cousin. He's like, guess where I am? And that's what he wanted. He got what he wanted. He gets
Yeah.
to run the office. That was what he wanted more than anything in the world, was to run the
Yeah.
office, was to run Thunder Mifflin. And Jim's like, okay, I don't want to do this. I like how things are going. So Dwight gets the job. And there's a reason why Dwight ends up running the office at the end of the show, because he actually makes some good changes. Uh by staggering people's breaks, that's good. Like, for maximum productivity,
Mhm.
that's really good. So people can still do their jobs and they aren't wasted. They aren't wasting time. That's really smart. I've worked at the Wawa and they staggered breaks at the Wawa. um,
Yeah.
it's a good model. It's a good policy. It's strong. Like, more jobs should do it. They should stagger breaks. They should separate breaks so people can breaks independently. They'll get more work done when they're working. And
For
then the
sure.
break, they can just do things individually. They can kind of reflect. They can recharge their batteries, get back into the game, reset, recharge. And everyone else is working while you're on break, which is fine, rather than shutting everything down during
Mhm.
break time, like having lunch hour. Like, that's time when things could still be happening.
Yeah.
But that also works for the Wawa model, because lunch hour is really busy, so people can't not be working. Like,
Mhm.
you need people constantly to be working, so you can't afford to have any hands lost. But I think that would work across the board, and that way more things could happen during the lunch hours, which I think is great. Like, I think things should be accessible and available all the time. So that was a policy Dwight's actually really liked. But it's also funny in the episode because Jim's like, yeah, mine's at like 9:30, and the first hour is a lot easier than the other 8. So he kind of says something along those lines, but he's really not happy about when his lunch break is. But it's funny, and also like the cards they've been downgraded to junior employee, and the business cards don't fit inside your wallet. And then they have individual copier codes, and Dwight really likes that the copier codes are really complex and they're very individual and specific to you. And they show Kevin using it, and he's just taking his time. Just taking his time. He's doing it. So, but they're really complicated. But that's Dwight's. That's how he does things. He does things the way he wants to do it, and it's really entertaining to see. And some of his policies are actually really good. So, and then it has probably my favorite exchange in the history of the show, where Dwight is briefing everyone and he's saying that him and Joe from Saber are going to have a big meeting, and no one should foment insurrection. And Jim says, if we've already fomented an insurrection, can we be grandfathered in? And Dwight says, define foment. And Jim says, you define foment. And then Dwight's like, and then Jim's like, yeah, okay. The only time I've ever heard the word foment used in the TV show, and Dwight also couldn't back it up, and Jim caught him in it.
Yeah.
And Jim kind of plays with him and catches him in it, which I think Dwight knows what it means. He just can't explain it. So, it's a really good moment, and it's really funny, and it's perfectly timed. It's perfectly edited. Whoever directed and wrote that episode, I believe it's season 7. I don't think it's 8 yet. I think it's the end of 7. The timing is so good on the jokes. So many of the jokes hit, and the jokes don't hit in every episode. So all of the jokes hit. The timing is perfect. The writing is really sharp. It is the best episode. Like, for me, people have different tastes. There's some episodes that are bigger ideas or that cater to like other people's tastes, but my taste, and also for how funny it is, pound for pound, I think it is the funniest episode. So for pure like humor, I'd say Dwight K. Schrute, acting manager, and Secret Santa. And but for Dwight K. Schrute, you do kind of have to watch the show to get it. Like, because you have to understand the character. So I'd say watch season 1 and then go straight into Dwight K. Schrute, acting manager. And then, like, if you're strapped for time and you just need to watch like the best Office episodes, so do that. Watch Fire Drill, watch Product Recall, watch Secret Santa. These are some of the really good ones. Watch The Money. Really good ones. Another episode from my list that I can't remember the title, but it's when Jim and Pam have the baby. And the only reason I like the episode is one moment, but it's in my like top 3 moments of the show, where Jim and Pam are having the baby, and Michael's like, okay, can we speed things up? And he's like outside the delivery room, and you see Steve Carell's reaction the whole time. And then you hear the baby being like born into the world, and you see Michael's reaction, and he's so excited. And it's timed perfectly with the cry of the baby. Like, again, the editors and Steve Carell, and like Steve Carell, years of improv experience, he's excellent timing. Like, the key to comedy is timing. Sharp writing and timing is the key to comedy. And Steve Carell is so good at it. He has it in spades. He's excellent in that scene. They show him smoking a cigar after that, and he's in a hospital. So the guy's like, "Okay, you have to put that out." And Supergirl's like, "Okay." um, so it's a really funny scene. And there's other good stuff in the episode too. But that is one of my like top three Office moments, and I honestly really like anytime anytime a birth is in a show, it's not wasted. I think childbirth is one of the strongest rhetorical techniques writers and directors can make to put in a show. Um, because it's really emotionally affecting and it's very powerful. And if they do good timing and good acting, a birth can be extremely amazing. And it works on an emotional level. And like, what's more exciting or beautiful than childbirth?
Yeah,
Nothing.
Friends
So
did it. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia had an episode with that in it. So yeah, definitely.
yeah, yeah, um, yeah, I, yeah, and if you time a baby's cry just right, and the great thing about them being born is it's positive. Like, you know, I've heard that the crying is a good sign, um, or that you get a reaction out of the baby. That's
Yeah,
what I've
me
heard.
too.
I'm not sure if it's that I'm not sure if it's that clear cut or streamlined with every case, but that is something I've heard. So but anytime there's a birth in a TV show, it's one of my favorite episodes. And this one is not wasted. This one is made the most of, and it's used very effectively. And also, it holds emotional weight and resonance. Emotional weight, resonance, and it's also funny. Um,
Sure.
love it so much. Yeah. Um, closing remarks on The Office before we get into Seinfeld.
Well, yeah, just a great show. I love the whole, documentary idea, where each character kind of gets their own time. So that's a really cool thing. And it also led to Parks and Rec, which is another great show. So I feel that that's worth a mention as well.
And Michael Schur, who producer from The Office. Yeah, he created Parks and Rec, and I think Brooklyn Nine-Nine too.
Mhm. Oh,
Um,
yeah, that's another good one. Brooklyn
yeah,
Nine-Nine.
another show that the comedy is just so on point and just great timing, and the characters are really fun.
Yeah.
And
They have Terry Crews. He's one of my favorite comedic actors. He's great.
he's so funny. Yeah. Um, um, yeah. No. So if you like The Office, also check out Parks and Rec or Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. So for Seinfeld, what is your 10th favorite Seinfeld episode?
All right. So, like I mentioned, no real order. I don't think I can name a favorite Seinfeld episode. So I'll just go from like the top of the list.
Okay.
I'm also gonna do some honorable mentions. Things I really wanted to put in, but just didn't fit. The Soup Nazi. Um, I feel that's gonna be on most people's list. Um, the Marine Biologist is on there. Um, that whole ending monologue with George, where he pulls out the golf ball, and then Kramer's like, "Is that die list?" That's just awesome. Um, the opposite, George is hired by the Yankees. He just berates George Steinbrenner, and then Steinbrenner's like, "Hire this man." Um, the Marble Rye is great. I love the line where Jerry's like, "Give me the bread, you old hag," and just like steals the bread. And then, it ties into a later episode where they're having that vote for the president of like Del Boca Vista, and it comes down to that lady because she remembers Jerry and is like, "Oh, that's your son, Morty." Um, so that's great. The Andrea Doria, where George just he basically wins the apartment by going over his entire life, and like the people are crying at the end. And then he's about to leave the room, and he's like, "Oh, and by the way, my fiance died by licking poisoned envelopes that I bought," and then leaves. The butter shave is a great episode. The bottle deposit, another excellent episode. The strike,
Mm.
that's the one where Festivus is brought into the mix. So that, like, I feel that has to be mentioned because people actually, celebrate Festivus to
Oh
this day.
yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, all the time. The opera, Crazy Joe Davola, he leaves that message on Jerry's machine. That's a great one. And then finally the conversion, where George converts all for
Mm,
a girl.
mm,
And then the two honorable mentions are the face painter. It's a great putty episode, and the contest.
mm. Um, Gotcha. So I actually would love to talk about the opera a little bit more. Because I some of my favorite Seinfeld episodes were like the episodes that integrate music very heavily into the episode, and they actually play music from the Pagliacci opera in the episode. They play like on the soundtrack, and then a character also sings it. One of the clowns like sings it on the street, and
Yeah,
I'm not sure if it's the Pavarotti version, because the Pavarotti version of of Vesti La Juba is really good, and I really like it. Uh, but I think it's a really positive use of music in a Seinfeld episode. Uh, and it helps kind of bring some of the scenes together, and it helps kind of highlight Joe Davola's sheer insanity and
yeah.
how he's really on another plane. But so it really complements the show well.
Mhm.
What do you like about the opera?
Um, a lot of it is centered around Drew Davola and Kramer. But you mentioned how like that show, that episode in particular, like highlights his insanity. And it brings me back to that message he leaves Jerry, where he's like, "I'm gonna lay the kibosh on you." Um, and then during the message he's leaving, he like starts going like, it's like, "Sorry, I had a hair on my tongue." Like, just, who would say that? Who would break up like a threatening message just to casually put in, "Sorry, I have a hair on my tongue." Why are you giving like, that
Oh,
benefit to that person you're threatening? Then Jerry hangs up. He's like, "I don't want the kibosh. What does he mean? What's a kibosh?" Um, and then Kramer sees Joe Davola on the street, but Joe Davola is dressed as clowns, and Joe's like, "Are you afraid of clowns?" And then Kramer's like, "Kinda." Just a great episode.
mm, um, 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 yeah, that is really interesting. And you talking about that makes me feel better about it because it was kind of an episode that kind of scared me kind of growing up, and it was a little bit too dark for my taste. Like it was kind of one of those darker Seinfelds. I feel like there were some dark ones in season four. Opera was a dark one, and the shoes was another really dark one. um and I remember you liking the shoes quite a bit. um
Which one was which one was that? The shoes. If you
that
if you
was
like, I'll need the plot to remember. Kinda.
um so the um that was the Botticelli's episode, and where Jerry and George go to Russell's apartment, and they're still pitching the show. They're trying to sell it to him, and
Right.
he's reading it, but he's really sick because Elaine sneezed on his pasta primavera.
Yeah, I remember that now.
And Russell's puking at his apartment, and
Yeah.
I remember I found that very kind of jarring that they would put that in a TV show. Yeah. Um yeah. That didn't really work too much for me then. I think I understand it a little bit more now.
Mhm.
And also I think there's some social commentary there. But no, that was kind of one of the darker episodes. And there's other dark stuff in it too, with like Russell's daughter played by Denise Richards and George staring at her cleavage, which Jerry's like, it's like staring at the sun, you know, you just kind of glance at it, you don't have to look at it, and George is like,
Uh,
it's cleavage.
staring at the
um
sun.
yeah ooh, no. Mm, yeah yeah, so that made me feel uncomfortable, but there's funny stuff in the episode. Elaine having a rivalry with another character is
Mhm.
funny. The the chef character at the restaurant, and her talking about the shoes, the Botticellis, and there's something really funny about the word Botticellis, and she's like, "Oh, Botticellis, look at you," and Elaine's like, "Botticellis, look at you," which also the subtext, like Elaine's jealous of the Gale character
Mhm.
because uh, the men, Elaine's friends, find her more attractive than Elaine, so she feels threatened. But at the end, Elaine kind of takes the reins, and she ends up being pretty persuasive to Russell, and makes Russell really develop a deep connection to her that goes into the next episodes. But yeah, it's a dark one. It's one I don't really like to watch, but it's really emotionally affecting. And no, you bring up the opera. That kind of reminds me of that. It's one of those really dark, kind of laden, subtext heavy episode with real problems. Like there are real problems in that episode. Um, and things that are really uncomfortable. Which is probably the Larry David, because listening to the commentary, they would say like Larry was the dark sensibility guy, Jerry was kind of the lighter, even though Jerry does have a dark sense of humor.
Mhm.
Jerry would do the lighter jokes. Larry would go for the really dark stuff. So I think that's heavy Larry David influence. Um,
If sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like
That's
with
cool.
speaking of Larry David, because if you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm, it's like it's like, the espresso version, if you will, of Seinfeld. It's just like a lot stronger. And one of the recurring themes of Curb Your Enthusiasm is everyone's like, oh yeah, isn't George supposed to be you? And Larry David always gets so angry that George is supposed to be modeled after him, because George is always this like bumbling buffoon in the show. But yeah, definitely Larry David has that more darker side. Just because like all his comedy is like everyday situations, in like the worst possible way to react to those situations, in which the worst possible way is just Larry David being brutally honest about what he's thinking or feeling in the moment.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Which is good if you know what you're in for with that, but can kind of hit you like a brick wall if you're not expecting that. So
Oh
you
yeah,
kind of
it can be an uncomfortable show to watch for sure. Curb Your Enthusiasm.
I think it is brilliant, and I think it's a brilliant idea, and it's very different. It's really different.
Yeah.
But earlier you talking about It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. If you like dark sensibilities and dark humor, if you like It's Always Sunny, you'll probably like Curb.
Oh yeah. Yeah, both definitely have, different levels of debauchery in it for
Yeah,
sure. And actually Rob McElhenney, he's a Philly kid.
that's
Um,
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, I think he went to St. Joe's maybe.
Oh yeah.
I hope I don't get it wrong because if someone went to St. Joe's and he didn't go there, yeah. But yeah, he did get go to one of the prep schools in Philly. I
Mm,
think it's St. Joe's, not sure, but I think it's St. Joe's.
mm. Yeah. He's a really talented director and writer. Like It's Always Sunny is a really well written show.
Yeah,
It's a really good show. So if everyone listening, if you haven't seen it, It's Always Sunny, please check it out. Probably no kids. If there's kids listening, me and
yeah, don't
Andrew
watch it
are
with your kids.
like me and Andrew are both kind of you're a teacher and I'm an aspiring teacher. So we both do have to, you know, think about the kids in the regard. What age would you say for It's Always Sunny? For me, I'd say 16.
I think I was like 17 when I started watching it. So yeah, 16, 17 probably. You know, anything younger than that, no, definitely not. Um, but yeah, probably 16 or 17. And also like the older you are, the more of the jokes you'll understand. For like just me, I remember like when I was a kid, I stumbled on Austin Powers on TV and
Oh
like
yeah.
had no idea what was going on. Several years later, I watched it again. I was cracking up laughing because I was older and I actually understood a lot of the humor. Um, Actually, the same thing happened with South Park. It's
Mm,
kind of a funny story. I had a really young, I was probably like 7 years old. Um, and I just turned on South Park. It's a cartoon to me. It's like, oh, cartoons must be kid friendly. No idea what's going on at all. Um, and then like my babysitter comes in, she's like, "You're allowed to watch this?" I was like, "Sure." She's like, "I'm pretty sure your parents don't let you watch this." Um, I just, 7-year-old me didn't know any better.
uh, yeah, man. Mm, uh, um,
Sorry to deviate from Seinfeld so
no,
much.
no, 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 no. Honestly, like Seinfeld's one of those shows that's so good that there's so many other shows that you could watch with it if you like Seinfeld that
Yeah,
could complement like the viewing experience. And um, I agree about South Park. It's brilliant. For me, it was getting past like the animation was kind of, and there wasn't enough dichotomy in the voices. Like there wasn't enough separation between different voices. There wasn't enough
very similar. Yeah.
there wasn't enough distinction. They were kind of all high pitched. So um like in other TV shows that would parody or sample South Park, like they would draw South Park characters and they would have normal voices, but then the South Park ones would have slightly higher voices. And I actually found that really funny. Because it was kind of a good kind of comparison and juxtaposition between two different styles. And then it has good timing. So, if you weave it in well, it can be really effective. um yeah. um No, South Park has grown on me. It was something I wasn't initially that into, but I definitely see the appeal now. Also, don't let your kids watch it.
Yeah, definitely an adult show.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, let's see. So I'll just briefly run through my list. I did mention the shoes, which isn't on my list, but it might be an honorable mention because the more I think about it, it is a strong episode.
Mhm.
So, uh, let's see. Favorite episode of all time is The Calzone. Second is the voice. Third is the airport. Fourth is the soup. Fifth is the cigar store Indian. The barber is number 6, which it also has a really good music element in it. And the guest actor in the episode goes that Johnny Depp, he makes me cry. um, the way he delivers that is
Yeah.
so amazing. It is one of my favorite line deliveries in honestly the series. Like it's so um um uh um it's so incredible, and that's a really good episode. It's a really underrated episode. Uses like music to like facilitate the episode and transition it, but that actor is really funny. Who plays Jerry's original barber Enzo, but then Jerry wants to go to Gino to get like the different haircut, and it's a Newman episode, and Newman episodes are always fun.
Oh,
So
yeah, for sure.
like Wayne Knight usually steals whatever scene he's in, which is probably a reason why Jerry and Wayne Knight have very real tension on the set because they're probably really competitive with each other,
Yeah.
which works. And you can tell they do like each other. And like they're like, I'd say, I'd say, uh, I'd say, we're frenemies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Like they do like each other. So no. Um, Not in every episode, but okay, okay. In the Andrea Doria, actually, um, they team up because Jerry says, "Newman, you moving away is my dream too." So, um, they team up, but they work together, and Newman actually coaches Jerry, and Jerry does too good a job, so they realize it's not Newman delivering the mail, which
Yeah.
is really funny. Yeah, the Andrea Dory is a really strong episode. Really funny and a good Newman episode, and one of the episodes where Newman is more redeemable because they kind of turn him into kind of hero. The package is also another one of my favorites, where I actually got into it heavily when uh after like a football game that you and I went to. We used to go to football games. Conestoga, yeah, we're Conestoga guys. We used to go to the Stoga football games, and it was an episode that I had on tape, and I watched it after we went to the football game.
Nice.
So I have it associated with that. Yeah. um, mm, uh, the package, yeah, was ooh, um, again because Newman has a really good monologue, and he interrogates Jerry, and he's like, so you're not going to play ball, eh?" So, such a good line, such a good Newman episode. Just Newman over the top and fun. Yes.
Is that the same episode where they discover the pictures that George thought he was sending to a woman, but actually sent to the other postal worker?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, that's a great episode.
it's really good. It's really clever. Has a good Kramer monologue with the write-off. Yeah, it's a
Mhm.
write-off for them. Write it off what? No, it's a write-off. They write everything off.
Uh,
You don't even know what a write-off is. No, I don't. But they do, and they're the ones writing it off. So great Kramer monologue, great Newman, great George story. So like, what more can you ask for? Like
yeah,
for an episode, and it's an Uncle Leo episode, and Uncle
Uncle
Leo
Leo.
episodes are also really funny.
Oh
So,
yeah,
um,
angry eyebrows.
yeah, like that actor was so invested in the role, and like he delivers his lines in such a funny way, and he's so into it. That like um you really like feel for him. Yeah, like that actor's great. So that's there's a lot of good things in that episode. I think it fires on all cylinders. So yeah, the package. Okay. So we are pretty much out of time. Closing remarks on Seinfeld.
Uh, well, that's it. Seinfeld to me is just like the ultimate sitcom. Um, it definitely, I think, advanced the game in terms of what sitcoms could do. Um, Obviously, like when we mentioned shows like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and um, things like that, they definitely are more controversial and are like take things more head on than Seinfeld does. But like Seinfeld started to do that with some of its episodes, with some of the situations that they were in. So I think in that regard, it kind of like opened up the field for some of these later television shows to be more aggressive and take more risks in the writing and really like allowed writers to do that. So I think in that term, in that sense of things, um, Seinfeld's not only a very funny show, but it definitely opened up the field a bit for other writers.
I agree. Two of the younger writers who wrote The Race, which is one of my favorites, didn't make my list. Ooh. But it's the Risk episode, which is so good. One of them went on to make the show The League, which is also really
Oh yeah,
funny
yeah,
and is also really good on the human condition and how people behave, and is so funny and so witty.
yeah. Nick Kroll's in that. He's hilarious.
I will love Nick Kroll. Yeah, genuinely very funny, a genuinely funny human being, and you believe it. Like he's a really good actor. And he very gifted voice actor too.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, um, uh, so Seinfeld gave birth to a lot of great shows, and a lot of shows wouldn't exist without Seinfeld. So Seinfeld, thank you for being awesome. And The Office, a lot of modern shows probably wouldn't exist without The Office.
Yeah.
So Office and Seinfeld, two of our favorite shows. Thank you, Greg Daniels and Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld, for making these really great shows.
And thank you for having me on. This was fun. I enjoyed it.
um, I appreciate you coming on the show, Andrew. All right, that has been Drew and me. Thank you guys. Thank you for watching and listening. Have a good day.